Oh, it's right there. All right, well, it is 6:30 and I'm going to call the order. I'll stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Bachran?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Knudsen is excused. Trustee Smith?
Yes, here.
Trustee Valentine? Here. Trustee Stelter?
Here.
Trustee McKenna?
Present.
Trustee Schwartz?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, we can continue. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
Mayor, if I can.
Yes.
So there was one item that I'd like to add, it's the change, excuse me. It's for the Pan-American representative for the town to change it from me to Corey as I'll be out of town.
Okay, we'll make that agenda item number 4.
What's that?
Can we add to?
I think so.
You know?
That's a Nick question.
Yeah, it's a Nick question. Well, we can add, is he there? Yes.
Is there?
Yes. Can we add an agenda item?
So typically you want to agendize any information you're going to take a formal vote on. So I guess what I need to know is a little bit more information about what this is. Stefan, it sounds like you might just be naming a designee for something you've been appointed by the board to.
That's correct, Nick. So I was at the last board meeting, it was approved to make me the town representative to the Pan-American Homeowners Association annual meeting, and I will be out of town, so we're looking to have that be Corey Heininger.
Okay, and my opinion is that that's an administrative delegation that can be made by the town administrator. So I don't think that the board needs to add that as an agenda item tonight, and something that you can do within your authority as the town administrator.
Thank you, Nick.
All right, thank you, Nick. All right.
I move to approve the agenda.
Yes.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Next up is announcements. I do have an announcement. I was able to finally get the RAISE grant submitted today but there is a slight change. After recommendations by CDOT, who reviewed the grant for us, they suggested we raise the amount of the grant 10 to 15%. So I submitted a grant for an extra $374,000 so that our grant total will be $1,857,726 instead of the $1,400 or so that we had. Okay. Anyone else have an announcement?
I have an announcement
Yeah.
there. So in an ongoing effort for employee training, Matt Taylor, one of our public works guys, received a CDL. So now we're up to 3 drivers with a CDL. And he wanted to express his thanks to the board for the opportunity to go through and get a CDL. He passed the test on the first try. Okay, so great.
Excellent. All right, anyone else? Yes.
I would just like to thank Public Works for their quick fix of the skate park incident from last week. I went by yesterday, it looks so good down there and just, I know it was an accident, just thanks for making it good again.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, let's move on to public comment. You may raise your hand, be recognized by the mayor, come to the podium, state your name and the street on which you live. There's 3 minutes per item for any topic not included under actions and presentations. Yes, Ms. Watson.
Hello, I received,
Name and address, please.
my name is Sue Watson. I live in Pam. I received a flyer in the mail today, and it appears to be on the town letterhead. It's a political flyer, and it's using the town's logo in the upper right-hand corner. It's the same logo you see here. I just want to know, is this really appropriate? I don't know, maybe it's free speech, but I'd like to know, is the town endorsing this? Is this what this means? And I kind of want to know who approved of this message. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Attorney has something to say.
Pardon?
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I think it's worth responding to that in a public setting just because it is a serious matter. So this is actually being handled at the staff level. The town clerk brought this to my attention earlier today. The town is not endorsing this particular candidate and cannot endorse any candidate for a board of trustee position. So the use of the town logo was town letterhead logo, whatever it looked like. I didn't actually see the document, but that was impermissible. And the town clerk has already communicated to that candidate that that was improper use, that they did not have permission, that they had to cease distributing any materials with the town logo on it. So that is being handled.
Thank you, Nick. All right, Mr. Keenan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I want to congratulate,
Address.
Stephen Keenan, 514 3rd Street.
Thank you.
I want to congratulate you on all the success you've had on your grant writing. It's really made a big difference for the town, and I hope that continues. I'm noticing, though, Madam Mayor, that you have on public hearings for later this evening, you've got the school.
It's not.
Oh, it's not. So can I discuss anything about that project?
Yes, when it comes up on the agenda, you are welcome to be commented.
Okay, so I just want to say, whoever is doing this food bank in the buildings here, it's been huge help for myself and other people. So I just want to thank that publicly. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
May I make a comment?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to say, Sam, you've done a phenomenal job with the notes, especially from that public hearing. That was an enormous effort and really well documented. So I just wanted to commend you.
That's my work. Okay, any other comments from the board? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Next up is the departmental scorecard. Mr. Wynn.
Okay. I don't have to time myself. So this deadline scorecard, this departmental scorecard was updated by one department. That department was not mine. So going back from last month, this was updated by members of Public Works, and I believe, Sam, did you update it too? And Sam, so there's two departments. It's been a very crazy month, so there are a lot of things in motion right now that ought to be updated. Just didn't have the time to do that updating. So, so you're all aware, I will give you a brief update on the fiscal year 22 audit. We do have a draft with numbers that are not final. They will be final hopefully within the next week or so, based on things that are changing with assets. And so that's something that's being done on the auditor level with our third-party consultant, Professional Management Solutions, on our actual assets from 2022. And once those are done, then I can have the final numbers I need to finish the draft of the MDA. That's the Management Discussion and Analysis Letter. That is in the works on the screen, I believe, right now. So you can see that we have been working on it. It's 14 pages long, but all of those numbers in there will change based on the final totals coming from our auditors. Let me go back to the departmental scorecard. RFP was, we do have a draft of the RFP for our code rewrite. The mayor helped me with that. She was able to make some adjustments so we could get it out. And that should go up on our BidNet website here in the next few days. One of the other things that we're going to be working on is an RFQ for a water attorney. Yeah, so that's something else that'll go up on that so we can secure a water attorney through the appropriate procurement process. Our chasing credit cards. So those are those credit cards that I can't wait to close. For whatever reason, we got a letter back that said our former finance director is still that person. They ran my personal credit twice, so I don't know what that's about. But hopefully we can have this resolved and closed. The good news is there have been no purchases on this card now in about 8 months, so I think it should be pretty easy to close. We didn't get any sort of response as to why it wasn't changed over. I didn't even get a letter explaining why it wasn't changed over either. It was addressed to our former finance director. So working on that. We did get confirmation today. I thought I had it a month ago, but we got confirmation today that our IHOP planning grant has been, we had about $7,100, $7,200 left on that grant. It is allowed to be used for urban rural continuum to assist with putting the housing needs assessment and housing action plan into our housing element for the comprehensive plan. And so I anticipate in the next couple of days that we will receive an updated contract, an amended contract that says that. So that's coming. Most of our Cassell integration and updates are complete. And so as you all are aware, I had to make changes to about 275 meters for this updated meter reading billing for some things that were done incorrectly. And so while I thought I tried my level best to catch all of the issues with billing, we're undoubtedly going to have a handful of issues with bills. But I think this should be a very accurate billing. It took me well over 26 hours to comb through all of our meters and make sure readings were accurate. So that's partially why we don't have a presentation tonight and the departmental scorecard wasn't updated, in addition to personnel issues. But if you want, this will be up on the website most likely tomorrow afternoon, so anyone can review what's up there. You can find these on my page of the town's website under departmental scorecards. That is it for the departmental scorecard update.
We have questions for the town administrator? Yes, Ms. Watts.
I have a question about, this is more connected to our 2024 budget. Do we do quarterly reviews where we compare actuals to budget, or?
It should be monthly. So I have good news on that. That's something that would be in our updated departmental scorecard. I had updated it. ClearGov is very close to having our new fund. We went from like a 8 or 9, or it was a bunch of digits down to where do we have 7 digits, and so that remapping is now done in ClearGov. It's in the final stages of being implemented and up for everybody to see through the transparency portal, but we're not quite there. There's also been some turnover on ClearGov. I got an email about that today as well. So it's coming. It should be done, but they should be monthly updates, and we're almost there. ClearGov has said, hey, we've remapped our accounts, and it should be in our transparency portal soon. Our fiscal year 24 budget has been uploaded. So you can see the budget. I don't know if they've made it live yet. I did check it yesterday, so it looked like it was live.
Yes.
I just had a comment. Thank you for all the time you put into those meters, because it's going to make a huge difference on our revenue. to get accurate readings and
Yeah,
associated.
I should report that there were some meters that going back to 2018 were automatically kicking out an estimated read or a no read. And so for all of those years, about 6 years, we were not collecting revenue for water usage. And I wish I could just say it was a handful of meters, but it was quite a few. Those also generated work orders. And our guys, so I thought I was making our public works employees upset because they had a lot of work orders to go out and check things. They enjoyed it. They went out, found that there were meters that may have been broken. Things were throwing tampered triggers down. Now that's typically when like there's power loss between the endpoint and the meter. What we found for some of those tampers it wasn't any nefarious activity. In one case, it was rubbing from the lid on the meter pit that caused it to sever. And in one case, they opened up and a bunch of field mice came out and chewed through the wires. So, but those work orders are being worked on. So if people see our public works employees in the right of way looking at their meter pits, and you've enjoyed not having an accurate water bill, those days are coming to an end. So.
Any other questions or comments for the town administrator? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to actions and presentations. We have a presentation from Phoenix Rising.
I don't think it was supposed to be for this meeting. This may be an error. So,
Okay.
Because I will have one thing to say about that. March 3rd is a Sunday.
Oh, yes.
We have our future land use element where we're inviting public. Well, it's not inviting. We really need public input. It's going to be held at the Blue Sage Theater from 1:30 to 3:30. That's the time to talk about anything you want to see for future land use planning, including short-term rentals and accessory dwelling units. So please come to the Blue Sage on Sunday. I think the presentation is going to be really well received.
Bring your friends and your neighbors and everybody else. So, and both in town and out of town people are encouraged to come.
Yep. Stephanie, I have a question.
Okay.
I can't just make a comment about that or.
No, that's okay. All right, moving on. So first thing on our actions and presentations is a public hearing. I will now open the public hearing on the application submitted by Good Love LLC for a new hotel and restaurant liquor license for the property located at 208 3rd Street, Paonia, Colorado 81428 by managing owner Abriza Para. Hope I got that right. The purpose of the hearing is to provide a public forum for all interested parties who wish to comment on these applications before the Board of Trustees. Please sign the roster on the back table by the door if you wish to speak. The procedure for the public hearing will be as follows. First, we will have a presentation by town staff. Next, there will be a presentation by the applicant. After these two presentations, we will allow members of the public to speak for up to 5 minutes. All testimony must be presented at the lectern after you give your full name and address, and I swear you in. Please do not repeat points made by others, but it is fine to say that you agree or disagree with a comment previously made. Please direct all your comments to the Board of Trustees and not to the town staff or the applicant. After receiving public comments, we will allow the applicant and town staff an opportunity to respond and answer any questions raised by the public comments. I will then turn the matter over to the Board of Trustees, and trustees may ask questions of anyone who testified. We generally will not ask questions during the presentations. Finally, I will close the public hearing and the Board of Trustees will discuss the matter and may take some kind of action. Once the public hearing has closed, no further comment from the applicant or public will be taken. However, the board may ask for advice from the town attorney. Public hearings are recorded for the public record. Town clerk, do we have proper notification?
Yes, we do.
Okay, do any trustees have any disclosures about this issue? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the staff presentation.
Madam Mayor, so as you see in your packet before you, Ms. Para has been through so many hoops that are required by the state for a license application. She is seeking a liquor license for 208 3rd Street in Hannah. It's the old 3rd Street Grill. You guys may have seen it. Let's see, there's been, in the 2 years preceding when she applied, there has been no denials there for any reason. So that wouldn't preclude them from keeping or having a license. Her lease that she has with her landlord, we found one little thing in there, but I also got documentation from her landlord about that expiration date. I'm sure some of you went through there and eagle-eyed that there was,
Of course.
no, I did not.
Oh my gosh.
For me, so. But we did get clarification from her landlord for the proper date, so her lease is completely in order. Her landlord is well aware of what they're seeking to do there and in support of it. We did background checks and stuff. Those are, of course, not in the packet for public consumption, but I do have all the documentation here if you guys want to see any of that. But there was nothing there that raised any red flags or stops them from having a liquor license. They're not within 500 feet from any public or private school. It's not a violation of any zoning, building, or fire laws and regulations. I also, whenever we have a license or a renewal, I also have Public Works and the police department look at it and ask any questions they might have, look at any things, and then the police chief will contact the fire chief as well if there's anything there that they think they need to look at. So everybody seemed to be okay with it. They have a plan in place for later evenings and stuff since they have a lot of residents around there. We've got some pretty good planning. Everything was noticed. My certified letter is on the paper. And now we're down to this, which is the last one. The state has been reviewing this concurrently, so they're viewing it at the same time. Hopefully that'll cut down on the amount of time if you should choose to approve their license tonight before they are able to receive a liquor license and begin selling alcohol to business.
Okay, any other staff comments? Okay, seeing none. Now we're going to move on to the applicant presentation. Would the applicant or applicant's representative please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and take the oath.
Hi, my name is Breeze Para. My address is 14134 Burgess Lane, Miami, Colorado 81428.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth in this matter?
Yes, I do. Okay. Hey, hi everyone. I'm Breeze Para. I'm the owner and chef for Good Love, the new cocktail bar and restaurant at 208 3rd Street. I feel so honored to be standing here in prospect of getting my liquor license. It's more than just opening a restaurant. To us, me and my partner Opie have been dreaming about this restaurant in fine detail for more years than we can probably count. Now we have a little girl and we've settled into a family life. The opportunity has presented itself and it really does feel like a dream come true. I've lived in Paonia for my whole life. This place it's more than a home. It's an entire community of people that I consider family. Since beginning the process of opening Good Love, I've received more support and excitement than I had even gone close to expecting to. I've watched the change that's taken place over the last 30 years here. To me, the change is beautiful. Watching our small town flourish is really exciting. We have a huge influx of tourism. Our towns became covered in art galleries and murals. We've got endless events and festivals. The only thing that seems to be missing is high quality food and cocktails. So I intend Good Love to be a place that supports both local and tourism needs. We'll provide everything from quick bites with your family in the middle of the day to a place to enjoy a classy dinner to somewhere to go out late night and celebrate. All the time that I've lived there, I've never seen anything like this happen, and it's really exciting to be the first one. So we will provide not only well-paying jobs for locals, but we'll also be supporting the farmers and ranchers, wineries, and distilleries. Our menu is almost completely all locally sourced. Beyond this, we'll also be featuring local artists and entrepreneurs and selling all their stuff within our shop. To me, this cocktail bar and restaurant is something that we're all missing by living this small town lifestyle. I truly believe that given the chance to provide something that it will help Panhandle be put on the map, as well as fulfill something that we've all been missing. We will do this with grace, responsibility, and everybody's best interest in mind.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Okay, next up is public comment. I will now open the public comment portion of the hearing. Please, if you're going to make a comment, come to the podium, state your name and address, and then make your comment after I swear you in. All right, would anyone like to comment on this matter?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I actually, since the packet has been published, I received a flurry of comment letters. So I'd like to submit those to you.
Would anyone like to speak on this matter from the public? Yes, Mr. King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Name and address.
Stephen King, 514 Church Street.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this matter?
Yes. I would encourage the council to approve this. I think that this young couple is an exemplary example of the kind of businesses representatives and owners that we want to support in a good way. And I just want to share something for new businesses just in general downtown. And that's that I feel some of our best ways to get dollars into the town is to have people that don't live here come for the weekend and then go back home. And so many times when I'm at farmers markets on the Front Range, I'll say, oh, I live in Panhandle. So many people will say to me, we would love to go out there. We've heard about the place, but we've never made it out there yet. So I propose that we do a treasure hunt. And I'll talk about that later. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Prima Mary, live at 110 Clark Avenue. Just have to swear or something?
Yes, do you swear to tell the truth in this matter?
Yes. I'm very excited about this new restaurant coming into town. I think it's something we can really be proud of, especially since these two have grown up here. I think they're just amazing people, and it's going to be such a great new restaurant in town. I think we should approve their liquor license and give them full support. And I have no doubts that it's just going to be a complete asset to our community and liven up the downtown a little bit. So, and I'm excited for cocktail. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Miranda Eiler of North Fork Avenue.
And do you swear to tell the truth in this matter?
I do. I also agree that this will be something to bring revenue and create a space for the public, not only locals and travelers, to celebrate and have food, enjoy themselves. I've known these guys for their whole life, so I attest that they are working very hard to create something very beautiful for this town, not only like the atmosphere that they're creating, but also like infrastructure of the restaurant itself. It's beautiful what they're doing with it, and I think that it's great, would be a great improvement.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Jessica Elliott Middleton. I live at 13450 Chicory Road, Hotchkiss, Midway, actually.
Do you swear to tell the truth in this matter?
I do. I am the owner, my husband and I are the owner of the building at 208 3rd Street, and I am urging the board to approve this liquor license. I agree with the points that were just made about this young couple and their enthusiasm and their work ethic and the sweat equity they put into this space. And I'm looking forward to a date night that I don't have to drive 40 miles to. So please approve this liquor license. They've done really great work so far, and I have no doubt this place is going to be a success.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, does the applicant wish to offer any further comment? Does the staff wish to offer anything else?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, in that case, I will close the public hearing. All right, before we turn to trustee questions and deliberation, I want to state that all the documents included as part of this record for the public hearing include all the application materials submitted by the applicant. All materials included in the planning commission, oh, that's not right. We'll take that to that. All the materials included in the town board package, all written referral and public comments received regarding the application, the notice of hearing, and the town subdivision and zoning ordinance. Does anyone have any objection to the inclusion of these items in the record? Okay. All right. Questions from the trustee? Anyone want to ask anyone questions? Yes, we can ask, yes.
I have a question of the applicant, which is strictly a personal question. What are your proposed hours of operation?
Oh, please come up and stand at the podium. Thank you.
As of right now, we're gonna play it by ear a little bit and see what works best, because as we all know, this is a small town, so we have to make it work. But we're gonna plan to be open Tuesday, Wednesday from 11 to 3, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 11 until closing, and then, which will be after dinner hours, probably 10. And then Sunday, we're gonna do brunch.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for anyone? Yes.
Can I give a comment?
Well, we'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, hearing none, I already did that. Okay, the board of trustees should dismiss the, okay, board deliberation. Okay. My script is a mess. All right. All right. The hearing is closed. It's now time for board deliberation. So, have at it, Ms. Wertz.
I just want to state that there are 14 very positive letters of support that we received.
Any other discussion, comment from the board? Okay, would someone like to make a motion then?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this application for a liquor license.
Okay. You have a second?
A second.
Hey, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Valentine?
Aye.
Trustee Stelter?
Aye.
Trustee McInnes?
Aye.
Trustee Schwartz?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, congratulations. Yes. All right, moving on. Agenda item number 1, consideration of approvals offered to the school district to purchase the VOTEC building. All right, it is in your packet. All the contracts, the changes that ensued when the current realtor, who was only a domestic kind of realtor, changed into a commercial realtor. And so there was a change of status in the realtors. And that's what that document is about. There is also in there God, I've lost my notes back. The thing that the realtors put out that have all the information on the building. There's some stuff that wasn't included that was in the last meeting packet, but pretty much what we saw last time, the inclusion of the contracts. All right, can we get public comment? Yes, Mr. Bird.
I think realtor status is changing from a realtor representing one party or the other to a transaction realtor. A commercial realtor is a completely different animal. If reading through the minutes from the last meeting, the mayor was given permission, or Madam Mayor, you were given permission by the board to submit a grant. And now you walk in here with a real estate contract. I think that's improper. I think you've overstepped your bounds once again. What I have here is some tiles from the 12-inch sewer line that comes down between North Fork and Orchard and crosses Second Street by my house and goes under the railroad track and then under the laundromat and on down. And this is tiles that were pulled out the last time they jetted that line. That line is in a state of serial collapse along with many other such infrastructures in the town of Paonia. And the grant that you guys are considering for this project actually is intended for infrastructure of this sort and could be made to replace sewer lines and repair water lines in this town. And I think it's a dereliction of duty for you guys to be talking about taking on this white elephant of an old building with no plan, no plan at all. Just the buy-in for this is over $700 for every household in Paonia for the matching grant. You know, I don't want to pay it. I want you to take care of what we got. Thank you. This is yours. I'm just going to leave it right here.
I would like to make it clear, if I may, this grant will not repair any sewer lines. This is for building. This what?
Suzanne Watson.
Yeah. So I went to it's in here, what's it called? I don't want to lose my place here. It's the federal regulations for this grant funding. And it says that they may be used for transportation facilities such as streets, roads, and bridges. Can you think of any streets in this town that are really in serious need of repair? Why wasn't there any planning discussions about how we might be looking at grant funding, what the prioritization projects we have around here? We've had numerous sessions of visioning workshops over the last few years. Never once have we seen moving town hall. You know, streets have been sidewalks have been issues. You know, we have failing infrastructure. We have a plan by SGM for the complete rebuilding and repaving of 3rd Street. That was done, what, 14 years ago? It was like in 2012, I think, 2010. Never got done because the town didn't have the money. These are serious infrastructure things that this grant, if there had been some discussion, could have, you know, the town could have voted to put the money in certain places. And I read directly from this information. It says streets, roads, and bridges. It was a choice that we could have had. And I feel like this is a Hail Mary, literally, at the last minute, encumbering us with a big building like this. I mean, it's a great idea. It would be beautiful if we had been responsible for the last 20 years with the way we spent money. But there are things that are a little bit more important right now. There also has to be significant community buy-in. That's another one of the requirements for this grant. And I'd like to know, is there community buy-in? Are you able to prove that? I think this needs to go to the voters. Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Keenan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Stephen Keenan, 514 3rd. You know, I think sometimes we have to think big. And this is a challenging building. I also think it's I would define it as a challenging grant. This is a congressional grant. So if we're going to have any hope of getting this money, I think we're going to have a junket to Washington, D.C. Junket meaning that a good part of the trip to Washington, D.C. is going to be entertaining. Bring the school kids with us from Paonia. Having an educational trip, get a school bus or two and go to Washington, D.C. You're going to have to present yourself as more than just a small town asking for congressional funds. You're going to have a presence with these congressional people, Warren being one of them if we get out there quickly. I have no idea what time you're planning on going to Washington, D.C. Seeing the cherry trees is a fabulous time. Bloom, when they bloom. It's a wonderful time to be in Washington. So I recommend that if you're going to be serious about this, you need to have a serious let's omit the word junket. You need to have a serious lobbying campaign. You're gonna need to go to Washington DC more than once. I highly recommend that you bring the kids with you and really make an impression on our congressional people. And that includes everyone who's running in the congressional district here. Thank God Lauren is leaving. We are not gonna miss her, in my opinion. But we're gonna have to talk to the people running in the primary. This is gonna have to be all hands on deck with the town. I agree with Suzanne. Do you have the public behind you? And there hasn't been much talk about this. So I do think, I don't know if you need to bring it up to the voters, but I do think you need to have a few hearings where people get to discuss their feelings about everything. I think it could be a fabulous idea and a fabulous project and really be something we should be proud of. I think we should consider the Telluride Foundation approach where they link up with the towns and the land is donated and private developers guarantee affordable housing. That's a big space out there. And every square inch should be analyzed. And I think there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Christina Patterson, Price Road. Just wondering if that grant is on the town website currently. Is that where I can find it? The grant request for this? Is it on site? Can I find it there? Okay.
Did she get an answer?
We will address that in a moment.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I should do that.
Anyone else? Okay, we come to board discussion. So to answer one question, we have been circulating letters of support. So there's a letter of support that has gone out and have asked community members if they would support us buying this building. The last time I checked, we had 113 signatures on that letter of support. And we still have 2 pieces that are still out there circulating. So yes, there is great public support for this building. All the people that I have approached, I've only had 2 people say, no, I don't think I want to. So yes, there's public support. Second of all, we did receive acknowledgement from the senator's offices that we put in this grant. It goes in on a Google form. So you can't really take a picture of it. You only have to rely on what they send you back. They sent me back a picture of the Google form that was for Safe Pathways for Schools. They did not send me the Google form that showed that we have the school building. So we proposed 2 projects. Safe Pathways for Paonia, which is a road project. It is the corner of 5th and Grand Avenue. We're doing that intersection. And then the second proposal was to buy the school. And unfortunately, like I said, they did not send me the picture of the Google form on that. Okay, other questions, comments from the board?
Yeah. Do you know if that means anything? That it did not,
Stefan
it didn't come in?
No, Stefan got an email. Go ahead, Stefan.
Yeah, so we did receive an email from the senator's office, both senators' offices, that said both of them were submitted and that they are both eligible for funding with this congressionally directed spending. The first one that the mayor talked about was for Safe Pathways. It's the 5th and Grand realignment. That is eligible under the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Subcommittee. And then the one that we're discussing tonight is the former school building purchase eligible under the Agriculture, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration Related Agencies Subcommittee. So there are 2 different subcommittees where 2 different grant applications will have to be filed. This is just an interest form that went to our senators for their consideration. And we've received back word that they are both eligible for funding. And I believe the mayor has also gotten lots of letters of support, not just from a petition circulating around, but also from the school district, and I believe some other agencies as well. So,
yeah. And then the other thing is I forgot. Never mind. It'll come back. It's one of those nights, people. All right. Other comments, questions from the board? Trustee Smith?
I have several. The first is, could you explain to me that we have asked for $1.5 million and we're offering $1.5 million, yet we still have to do a 25% match of $375,000. And I don't understand how that comports with, what are we doing with $375,000? What is it going towards? And where would we get $375,000? So that's one, and the second question I have is with regard to the contract. So they're asking for $25,000 of earnest money to be put down. What I didn't see in here was a due diligence delivery deadline, which according to this contract means that if we decide not to buy the building, we get the earnest money back. I don't recall if the blue type at the end of this contract covers the earnest money, but I also want to know where are we getting the $25,000 earnest money that it sounds like we have to put up. While my next question is the timeline here. This contract is asking for many, many things from us during March, and it's also requiring many, many inspections and things to be done in March. And I have a pretty good idea that we would not hear from our senators for quite a few months as to whether we will be getting the money to buy the building. So I don't understand what the rush is with so many things that we have to provide and that the seller has to provide in the next 2 weeks, honestly. I just don't understand what the path is and what are the sequence of events? And my biggest question is, why are we doing a 25% match?
Okay, part of the way this is going is through this community facilities grant through USDA. And they require certain criteria. You have to, whenever you get one of these congressionally discretionary spending things, you have to go through an already existing program, which means, for example, if the Safe Pathways to School one was chosen and we were designated for that, we would have to go through the RAISE grant program, which is exactly what we're applying for. So we have to meet all the criteria in the RAISE grant to be able to apply for this. Part of the USDA Community Facilities Grant is you have to come up with a 25% match rate. And so they would give us the 75%, we would have to come up with 25%.
But how does that comport with getting 1.5 million from Congress?
Well, part of that can go toward that. So
it's not prohibited to take that 1.5 million, pass it through,
right,
and then take.
Yeah, like closing costs and stuff like that can come out of that one.
But we still have to come up with $375,000.
But there are other sources to get that $375,000 that are grant sources that aren't.
All right. I understand.
Taxing the people who pay on those sources.
But I have to say, I'm sorry I wasn't at the previous meeting, but I feel as though there have not been a lot of pros and cons presented in association with trying to buy this building. I'm concerned that we would then be doing more granting to get money for this building when we have an awful lot of grants that we need to do for our infrastructure, which is the number one priority in my opinion. But saying all that, you all voted to go ahead with this grant. But what I would like to propose is that somebody explain to me why we're doing all of this in March with this. Is that because the realtor wants some semblance of guarantee that this is a valid proposal to buy this building? I just don't understand why we only have 2 weeks to fulfill all these numerous things in this contract, or for someone else to be spending time doing it. And then I also am curious about it. There was talk about a lead paint disclosure, and I don't know if that's necessary, but it's not here. They referenced it as an attachment, but it's not here. And lastly, as you can tell, I'm concerned about exactly what the path we're taking down here. But lastly, there was a email from Michelle Pattison yesterday that had quite a few questions that she would have liked to have had answers to. And I'm sorry that letter was not provided tonight. Really good points. So I would like to make a motion after all this is done that we have another agenda item where we look at some of those pros and cons that she brought up in her email, because she's asked some very good questions about how are we going to possibly facilitate all of this taking on the building when we're going to have to do, I'm sure, numerous amounts of construction, interior construction, et cetera. And here's my last thing. None of us were given an opportunity to see this building before all of this has been put in front of us. And that's not normally how we operate. Usually the trustees are given an opportunity to look at what we might be responsible for, and that was not done. So I would suggest we do have a tour, because you all voted to go ahead with this. I would have been a dissenting vote, but that's neither here nor there because it's too late. But I do think we all should have an opportunity to see the inside of this building. If we get the money, we need to know what exactly we're taking on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the board?
Could we answer, or Madam Mayor, could we answer the question of why do we have to do this in order for the grant? Is this the realtor saying like from my understanding from last time, it was, we're applying for the grant, but that's about it at that point. Why do we have to then sign this contract?
Yes. Oh, Nick, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I wanted to weigh in on that because I think that's an important part of building this record. So I'm glad that Trustee Schwartz gave an opportunity to bring that up again. So it was a request of the seller. In essence, there was some discussion about that point, and the idea was that the offer needed to be submitted in a timely manner, and I think that there was a deadline that was given to the town because of other interests in the property, and that's what I can say publicly. And just to address the issue of what the board's motion was in the last meeting, it is exactly as the board recalls, and I have the motion here. It was a motion by Trustee Schwartz and seconded by Trustee Valentine and passed by a vote of 5-1, with Trustee Smith being absent. And the effect of the motion was to move forward with the congressionally directed spending request in amount of $1.5 million for the purchase of the Votech building at 4th and Grand. So when approached with the urgency of the town submittal of the offer, I was brought into the discussion because the motion didn't specify anything to do with an offer being made on the school district building. So that was an issue that the town needed to address from a legal perspective before it could submit this offer. So you'll see if you scroll down to the end of the contract in section 29, the additional provisions, there is a statement that says this offer is contingent on Board of Trustee approval, which means in effect, the offer has not been made until such time as the board approves this document, which constitutes, it is a contract, as Mr. Bruner said. However, it constitutes an offer until the seller actually signs the agreement following the town submission of the offer. So based on the motion that was made, it was determined that in all likelihood, if the town did not make the contingent offer, the school district would have been likely to sell the property to another purchaser, thus obliterating the purpose of the request for directed funds. On the other hand, if the town were to receive approval of that $1,500,000 request, it would have to use that for the purchase of the Votech building. So at that point, it was determined that to carry out the intent of the board's motion, this was the right course, and making the offer contingent on two things, really. The board's approval of the contract within the time frame set forth in the offer, and the town's receipt of the funds. And there was a date slapped on that. And I see, oh, it's July 31st, 2024. And that's because you just don't want any outstanding liabilities on the books that you have to carry forward past a certain date and time. So that was what occurred in this instance. And because it's contingent on these items, it actually does not circumvent the mayor's authority to have done this, and it is in line with the motion, and it is completely up to the board whether or not to approve this offer this evening. And if the board does not, then essentially the offer is rescinded. There's no contract yet, because, well, neither the seller has not signed yet. So that's my spiel. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, can I just ask a question of you, Nick? And that is, reading this contract, are you assured that if we provide the $25,000 earnest money and then do not buy the building, will we lose the $25,000?
No, you would not. And it's not, I agree with you, Trustee Smith, that it's not altogether clear, but there are multiple, in real estate, there are multiple ways to get your earnest money back. And I think, if the town does indeed, I mean, okay, so let's just use actually the disclosure, the due diligence timeframe. If the town were to object to anything in due diligence, and I agree that timeframe should be longer in the ultimate contract. But if the town were to object to anything, termination and return of the earnest money would be the town's remedy in that instance. And just like any of the other objection procedures that are listed in the contract. I would say that it could be clearer on those points having to do with the earnest money, but that is the typical. And I don't think that the town needs to. I think that full amount, right, listed here, the town's obligation to pay the purchase price and any other costs under the contract are contingent upon the town's receipt of the grant funding. So that's enough to say that the town would get refunded its earnest money. But I do wish that language was a bit clearer.
Yes, Trustee.
Yeah, I've received quite a bit of public feedback kind of in the weeks since we've been here. And I think what I've been hearing is there seems to be some outdated misconceptions about the building itself, and then also a lack of understanding of what we're going to do with the building. I think if we had the time to actually do an information campaign and let people know, okay, here's the plan, here are the ideas, let the trustees and or some of the public walk through the building and actually see physically what's happening. I think a lot of the consternation that we're hearing would probably dissipate, but the timeline that we have in this contract and just kind of the general course so far is far too quick for that to happen, so I'm kind of torn. It's a fantastic idea, but I think the timeline that we're working with right now is not ideal.
Other comment? Yes.
So I have a question about the, if by July 31st, 2024, the town does not receive the funds. I thought I had heard at the last meeting that they still haven't distributed the 2023 congressional funds. Is that?
No.
Oh, okay. Is this a realistic date based on the status of our federal government? Because it seems like that's a very short amount of time and we might be going into federal shutdown. We know that this is a long shot. We know, like, going into it, this is a long shot. There's a chance we won't get this. And I'm just worried that, like, July 31st, are we going to put all of this effort in and the government doesn't function. Not our government, we're functioning great. Yeah. I don't know how you may answer that, but.
I have no idea.
My crystal ball is broken, yes. Well, is it reasonable to have this in the contract?
We have to have it.
Right, but let's, all right, hey, Nick. Could we look at that provision, which is on page 113?
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah, go ahead.
I had left a blank there, and I wanted to look at what a reasonable date might be, and my recommendation was that fill it in with a date that gives the police a reasonable buffer with reference to when the town might learn about whether it has been awarded that funding. And then, you know, I think that was, I had suggested that before sending it to the school district for review in addition to the contract. So I think that date probably is a reasonable estimation of when the town will have heard back on those items. But that's what my advice has been, just to make sure that there's a buffer so that there's actually time to close on this if the town receives those funds.
One last question for Nick. Is it too late to put a proviso in that number 1 that says, in the event this occurs, the town gets their $25,000 earnest money back?
In the event that it does occur.
In the event that we don't get the money by July 31st.
Oh, yeah, I think it's certainly not too late. I mean, this offer has been made, but it's subject to the board's approval. So it's a contingent offer. And in lieu, if you're able to stop this, to rescind this offer, then it stands to reason that you're also able to add additional conditions so that it's acceptable for you not to rescind the offer. So, yes.
One last question. Yeah. What is the MEC in number 2? Item number 2 on page 113. I don't know what that acronym stands for.
Yes, it's a good question. I knew when I wrote it, so let me just refresh that.
Oh, now we know where it came from.
Yeah. Let's see here. One more second, hopefully.
Well, Nick's looking, the other point is, this still has to go to the school board. They are the sellers, so they have to take it in front of the school board and have them accept the offer. And it's not a valid contract, so that's done too. So, and that could be, what, next month? Or the month after, you know? Because they don't meet all that frequently either.
And the thing is we had a school board member at the meeting last time that said that she opposed giving us the building.
So it's gonna have to go to the
It's not held out.
Trustee McGinnis?
Well, I was just gonna say, if that's the timeline, then our date of deadlines is
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can. I mean, I recognize the kind of looming deadline of another offer and or more interest, but I wonder if we can delay our offer and actually get our boots on the ground and look at the building and kind of talk to the public about the things that we want to do with this building. And if the other offer is accepted and it's sold, then that's what it is. But if it's not, I don't know, I feel like if the school board wants to sell us this building and they know that we are interested, then it seems to me like they would make time for us to actually be able to make an honest decision of it.
Yeah. As the town representative to the One Delta County, they have been shopping this building around and they have several prospective buyers. And that's just what I know. So there's more than one, and they're talking to developers, et cetera. So it could be developed in different ways.
Well, and am I remembering incorrectly from last meeting that there is some level to which that the town has a say of how this building is used?
Only by zoning.
It's only by zoning and it's zoned, commercial at this point.
No,
So pretty
Oh, it's public.
public, that's right.
So, yeah,
It'll have to be rezoned no matter what happens.
right. So it has to go through a town process to be rezoned unless they're going to open another public facility.
But we don't have to approve it.
True. That doesn't.
I mean, we
won't.
do have some, right, but
Yeah.
we do not have, I mean, we are not a rubber stamp.
Yeah.
Is my point.
But we have to have a legal reason to deny it.
Mhm.
So that's really the thing. If they come in with something that meets requirements, it goes through. We can't do it because we didn't like it that they bought the building. And that's kind of where we're at.
Well,
This is a really big deal. And I think it could be an asset to the community long-term. There will never be another piece of property this size within the town limits that is at this stage. There are pieces of property that are equivalent, but the last time I looked, a house lot without a water tap was going for $98,000. So
That's
And this is
low,
a-
that's the low end.
that's the lowest. And that was a building lot. That was not a 5-acre piece of property with a building on it.
I just want to remind everybody, we do have 3 acres right outside the town that belong to the town.
But the other thing, the other thing is too, I mean, we cannot
Right
replicate a
in town.
building of this size for this kind of money. I mean, there is no way, and even just the police have outgrown their space. Even to build another building for the police is gonna cost more than the $375,000 we're gonna put in for our share of this, yes.
So to add 2 points, one is, we don't know, have no idea what it's going to cost to turn this building into all the different things we say we want. We have no idea because none of that has been presented to us, nor has it been decided. So that's a big black hole in my mind for what are we talking about here for future spending. But secondly, I remember when we toured the police offices, there was talk of getting a trailer that could be used so that victims did not have to see their perpetrator in that office, which I think is really important to do. But at that time, that was kind of the potential option, which is certainly cheaper than buying a whole new building. So I just want to say that we have not had the serious kind of discussion we should be having about this building, what we need in it, what is a need and what is a want. None of that conversation has taken place because we withdrew the potential for doing this last year for this building, and it just hasn't come up again. And I would like to say that I think it would be really great to have, even a public meeting specifically to talk about our town infrastructure. How bad is some of it? How much of, because Sursa has pointed out a few things, but nothing that I recall that made the Public Works building unusable on 4th. So we do have some information, but we've never looked at this all holistically. I feel like we're just jumping at an opportunity without looking at the whole big picture. And can this town of 1,500 people really do our infrastructure, which has to be first, water, sewer, because it's only going to get more expensive, and consider moving out of all of our buildings, hoping somebody buys them, and refurbishing the building down the street. It will need work. We don't even know what it'll cost once it's built with people. Anyway, I feel like we are chasing free money, and I don't think we have thought through, do we really want it? Thank you.
Anything else from any board?
One of the things is our town.
Nick? Okay, I'm gonna let Nick and then go Nick.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back to the MEC and what that means.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we kind of lost that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So it actually stands for mutually executed contract. So that basically means the date on which the last party signs the contract. So that will be when the contract becomes a contract, essentially. So It will be, since Mary has already signed the contract to make the offer, that will be the school district board's signature. So the board actually has, this board actually has 21 days from that date to approve the contract before the contract is valid.
Okay, yes, trustee.
I'd like to make a suggestion that we hold a public informational meeting and get a finger on the pulse of the public. A lot of people just don't understand anything about the building. My kids went to school there. I'd been in that building dozens, if not hundreds of times. And in my opinion, we will never have another opportunity like this. It is an expensive thing. It's kind of nebulous, but we can go ahead and hold a special meeting. I mean, we can hold one next week, for God's sake. We don't, all we need is 24 hours notice and the willingness of the board to show up. And I think that we should make this an effort to get community buy-in, because it's a big deal. And it's a wholly different thing than our streets and our water and everything else. Those are different kinds of grants. And yes, we're going for a lot of grants, and it's a lot of work, but I do believe that this is an opportunity that will never come again. And I'm afraid of losing the opportunity, and we can back out anytime. And our money is, we don't have to put the money in.
Yes, trustee.
I'd like to follow up to your point, trustee Stelter. Nick, what is, so I realize like why we need to be very timely in making a decision, but I also get that we need some more time to hold public meetings, to just learn a little bit more. If we were to receive this congressionally designated funding, do we have recourses that we could back out? And would it just be we lose our earnest money? Like, what would happen if we said, yes, we sign this, and then we decide, you know what, this isn't what we needed to do? What would that look like?
That's a very good point, trustee. And I first I'll say that I don't have firsthand knowledge of the urgency of this. I was operating off information that I received about that, and that's what I have to operate off, right? So, I encourage the board to further investigate that if they want additional information on the actual urgency here. But to get to the question, I think that is the largest risk. It's losing the earnest money once that's put up. And I think what's been identified tonight as where is that earnest money going to come from, and whether it needs to be put up prior to the time that the congressionally directed funds are received, if they're approved. That's a good question. Those funds have to come from somewhere, assuming they'll have to be put up prior to that time. I would suggest that the way the contract's written right now, they don't need to be put up before the congressionally directed funds are received, but I don't know if it's clear to the school district that that's the case. So I think there are some issues that really do need to be worked out, and could be worked out should the board approve this offer this evening with the school district. But it's important that these types of things are discussed so that there can be a mutual meeting of the minds between the two parties, so that everybody understands what the expectations are. And it's hard to do that with these types of form real estate contracts, right? Because we're just dealing with provisions that are pretty standard, and this is a complicated deal. So with that said, there is the way that the language is written. This contract will essentially become null and void if on that date, July 31st, 2024, the town hasn't received the funds in the requisite amount. And if the town had put up the earnest money by then, and the town did receive those funds, then it would be obligated to move forward with the contract, but for the outs that the town has that are written into the contract. So if you go back up to that table where it's talking about the deadlines, which I do think will certainly have to be revised, in that table, there are some hints. It doesn't contain the exact language, but think about purchasing a home. It's very similar. You have your inspection. A lot of times, folks will waive inspections or the ability to object. And what that does is it waives the ability to ask for seller concessions. But what it does not do is impair the ability of the purchasing party to terminate the contract based on something that they find on the property that causes them no longer to want to close. So that's an instance where the board would be able to terminate, and Colorado law is pretty protective of sellers, and often you'd get the earnest money back. So my thought is that in the most the largest consequence, if the board does receive the congressionally directed funds or from the USDA grant in the requisite amount, the largest consequence will be losing the earnest money should the board decide not to move forward with the purchase ultimately.
So, yes.
So, Nick, there is a mention of lead paint in here. Do you know if they are required to do a survey of lead paint in this building since it's commercial?
That was correct. From my understanding, it's in parentheses. It's if a residential addendum is attached. There's no proposal to make this multifamily residential or something. So I would say that this isn't valid.
Okay, so we could not expect to get a lead report for this building from the seller by law.
Right, that deadline is passed as well, so that disclosure would have come from the seller.
Okay, but wouldn't we want to know if there's lead paint in there?
Lead paint testing kits are very cheap.
I'm sorry. That's not a good, I've done that in my own home. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a serious look at any environmental hazards we may be looking into at this building, because there are going to be a lot of people in there, including children, if it's going to have a recreation area. So anyway, that's my concern.
My experience with lead paint disclosures is strictly residential, and it's always around windowsills. In this building, nearly all of the windows, with the exception of
the gym.
The gym, but there was like a cupola area. All of those windows have been replaced.
I just have to say, I would want to know. I think it would behoove us to hire somebody to do professional testing on that and anything else, perhaps, but.
I have a suggestion. My suggestion is that we put this on the next agenda. And in between now and the next agenda, we have a tour for the trustees and any public who wants to come to go and see the building and really take a look at it and understand a little bit of what it's all about.
And I suggest that we have a public information meeting sometime after that as well to discuss and get also the public for this with suggestions.
I think that would be contingent if staff has the capacity to facilitate something like that. Not that you don't have the skills to, but
the meeting or the tour?
The tour is straightforward.
I know, yeah, get the realtor, she takes us to the building.
Yeah.
And anybody who else, you just notice it as a public. Somebody like to make a motion to that effect? Yeah?
I'll make that motion. I'll make a motion that we postpone this decision and we hold a public tour for trustees and the public before the next council meeting to tour the building.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, this will be on the next agenda. And then we will figure out with the Realtor when we can do this. And then if the trustees can send available times so that,
Tuesday.
yes, Stefan or Sam.
Can we send them to Sam?
Would it be easiest just to do a doodle poll if the realtor says we have X times? Let's do it that way, because,
Okay,
I mean,
That's the easiest way.
yeah.
And then
then
get
let's-
a public notice out.
Right, and get public notice out. Okay, all right, moving on to agenda item number 2. Oh, wait, yes, what? Oh, Nick, I'm sorry.
I just want to make clear that I'm not sure if the realtor or the seller has offered that tour yet. Particularly when it comes to members of the public. So I just want to make sure everyone's clear that this will be contingent upon the school district's approval, of course.
do we need to revote?
I think it's okay. From the board's perspective, that's a fine motion to make, but there's another party involved, and I just wanted to make sure, especially that the public was clear that, the town will have to seek approval to do that before it can get scheduled.
Yeah, but if we have availabilities, then it makes it easier on the Realtor and everybody else. Okay. So item number 2, review of changes to pending ordinance 2024-01, amending chapter 7 and 10 of the Paonia Municipal Code. So this was in our last agenda packet. Would you like to talk about this, Chief Lymanger?
Yeah, I'll actually rely on Nick for this. He made some of the changes that were mentioned in the last meeting. And I'll also point out, we received some feedback from the community, as I'm sure you guys did. We can address some of those concerns they had as we move through them as well, but we should be able to address those as we work through it tonight. But yeah, Nick made most of the changes to it, and then I reviewed it.
Okay. Comments from the public? Yes, Mr. Green.
So I want to compliment you on your wisdom handling the last item there. But I think if you try to sell this with the public and don't actually have a plan or you know what's going to happen, point of order.
Yes, yeah, we are not.
In any case, it's in terms of these proposed ordinances here. I understand we need leash laws, and actually I was shocked to look and find we don't actually have any ordinances against open burning in town. I think we used to, probably should. And on the positive side, one of my comments was if we're going to limit burning, we should certainly limit the ability to burn tires, railroad ties, treated lumber, and I'm really happy to see that's in here. On the other hand, I think a lot of this strikes me as HOA rules, lifestyle stuff. I don't understand the public harm to someone working on a vehicle in their front yard. I get it, we don't want people rebuilding cars in the street. Okay, but this actually would make it so that a lot of people in this town can't work on their own vehicle if they can't work on it in the front setback. Because a lot of people don't have a garage. You need to have a place to work on your car. I really think that's kind of going with that kind of point. When it comes to the animals, we need leash laws and all of that, but this actually will make it so that I can't be out in my yard with my dog if he's not on a leash. And it's like, I don't like that. I really think that's another point where it's a little over restrictive. And it completely exempts cats. Over the years, I've had a lot more trouble with feral cats pouring out of a neighbor's property than I have with dogs. And there's cases in town right now where there's people harbor toms that are just terrorists in the neighborhood. Tomcats should be spayed. There's a lot of stuff like that. And I don't understand the impetus for doing this right now, but I'm going to say there's a lot of ordinances this town has that are not enforced. Just a couple quick, there's people parking in alleys. There's people that don't shovel their walks. There's people that have been blocking the sidewalk with their trailer for years. We have an ordinance that was passed because some individual was parking trailers on the street and somebody didn't like it, so there was an ordinance for that. Now that's not enforced anymore, and there's people parking trailers all on the street all over the place. So, I mean, think about it. Back it off a little bit. Let's try to stick to what is really important. And one more thing on the fires. It's like, when's the last time they actually had?
All right, I'm
property
sorry,
damage?
Mr. Bruner, but your
You let
time is
other
up.
people run on. When's the
Please
last time
wrap
we
it
had
up
property
quickly.
damage from someone having a fire in a pan or a fire pit on their property? I don't think it's happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Watts. So these are termed as nuisance ordinances, basically. I'd like to say, I don't know why we have to add this phrase except for domestic house cats. Why are we exempting cats from these rules about animals running large? If you look at our code, cats are required to have rabies shots. Do you think anybody gives rabies shots to their cats in this town? There's no limit on how many cats you can have. There's no limit on if your cats have to be spayed or neutered. There's no limit on dogs either, number of dogs. So why are we saying cats are exempted from the rules running at large? I mean, cats are a terrible nuisance and they actually are a health threat too. They carry toxoplasmosis gondii parasite, which causes spontaneous abortion in pregnant women, and it also leads to schizophrenia in adults. It crosses the placental barrier, and it manifests itself when people are in their 30s. It's in the CDC's new and emerging disease threats. So I don't see why we have to add the language exempting house cats. I think it would be better to just be silent on that until we come up with a cat policy. That being said, with the vehicles, why is it a nuisance if someone wants to work on their vehicle in their front yard? Sounds like a zoning ordinance to me. It sounds like you're telling people how they can use their property, what areas of their property they can be used. And I don't know that level of detail should be included in a nuisance ordinance, because it's truly, why is it a nuisance? If someone does it in a very neat and tidy way, I don't think it should be construed as a nuisance. It's a property use, and I believe it's a zoning issue, not a nuisance ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Board discussion. Yes, trustee McGinn.
Can I just suggest kind of a direction of our discussion? Last time we talked about this, we kind of hopscotched all over the place and never really finished on, can we discuss one ordinance at a time, please? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's start at the top.
Why can't the public discuss a word?
Yeah, nice. Mr. McGinnis, let's start with inoperable vehicles, okay?
Comment?
Yes.
Hello again. I had a lot of comments about this last time. I too am in agreement that I don't feel like if someone is working in a car in their yard, it has to be covered as long as it's not on public property and it's limited to one. In my mind, I don't want us to, I'm looking at section C.
Thank you.
Yep. I don't want us to manage at that level. Someone's working on a car, it may take them a year, it may take them two. If it's on their property, I'm okay with that, and I don't feel like it has to be covered. But it definitely should not be in the public right of way. That is totally, in my mind, yeah, that's not acceptable. But if it's on someone's property.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
to our
please.
town attorney? So,
Yes, please.
Nick, I see things in red. Are those things that were made from the last meeting?
That's exactly right. So,
Okay.
yeah, and this was, and I'll say, I think at the top of the draft, it states that it was all the track changes are based on how I received. It doesn't necessarily say that, but the recent changes were what I had remembered the board's feedback as being. So, you know, one of the reasons this is up for discussion and not formal action tonight is that there's another opportunity for feedback tonight if you know, I misremembered what the board had provided.
Yes, trustee.
When we discuss repairs on a vehicle, one of the things that's been used in other places that I've lived is that a vehicle that is in public view has to be licensed and insured so that it doesn't, you don't have a car that's, you know, a 10-year project in the front yard or on the public right of way. And right now we have ordinance now that if your car is not licensed and insured, it can be towed. And if you'll be ticketed and then it'll be towed. And that's good. And perhaps we can get rid of a lot of this problem by requiring that cars that are being worked on in public view have to be licensed and insured. That way, it kind of has a little spur to let's get this done. I mean, I know guys that do restoration projects that take 20 years. And part of the thing about your rights versus your neighbor's rights is having inoperable cars in your front yard will lower your neighbor's property values. And that's part of the deal. And if you want to live in town, you need to kind of be cognizant of what your neighbors are dealing with. I know that if my neighbors had dead cars in their yard and I wanted to sell my house, I'd be pretty unhappy.
Okay, all right, I think.
I just had a question. The current ordinance, which of course I'm not that familiar with, where a car can be towed if it's not properly licensed, is that only on the public right of way? Okay, thank you.
Trustee McGee.
I feel like we are trying to dance around the distinction between an inoperable vehicle and a derelict vehicle. And I think there's a line that I feel like we're trying to draw between somebody who's actively working on their main source of transportation and a kind of project. And I think the quote unquote projects that are actively being worked on, you don't let that project be in a field somewhere. Like that's covered. if you're the type of person to work on that project, I don't think you're the type of person to leave that project in the front yard. And so I wonder if there's a line that we can draw within this ordinance that designates the difference between a derelict vehicle and a inoperable vehicle. Because if you have a vehicle that is inoperable on your public property, but you're actively working on it, I don't think that there should be a timeline on that. But if you have a derelict vehicle on your property that's just kind of rotting, for lack of a better term, then there does need, in my mind, those two things are not the same thing. Yeah, I don't know if we can add language to make that distinction or.
I think we probably can. And, you know, I like Rick's suggestion of the licensed and insured. I mean, if it is your vehicle and it is your primary transportation, it's licensed. Yeah.
Good. Well, just if everybody could look at the definition of an operable vehicle, I think we could look and see what Trustee McGinnis is getting at that isn't there. Because I'm kind of confused about what is in this definition that is missing in terms of getting at your point. An operable vehicle means any motor vehicle that does not have a current license plate and validation sticker lawfully affixed to it thereto. And this is not saying where that vehicle is sitting. Have we made a distinction where a vehicle that is not properly licensed can be? We know it can't be on the public right of way, but can it be in your front yard based on this current proposed ordinance? I don't know the answer to that because this is a little too confusing for me. But it says, or is in a condition of being junk, wrecked, wholly or partially dismantled, discarded, or abandoned, or is unable to perform the functions or purpose for which it was originally constructed, or is not capable of being properly started and driven under its own power upon the street. That sounds like a derelict vehicle to me, but I don't know. So if derelict vehicle is an important term that could give more clarity to this and more fairness, I say let's create a new definition, but I don't know what that should be. So that's all I'm saying is we probably are missing something here. If we want to give people the opportunity to work on their car, truck, in their front yard, it has to be licensed. And I gotta say, you gotta put a time limit on it. I don't want to look at my neighbor's truck for 2 years in their front yard. So that's just my thought on that. You know, it's a matter of being conscientious to your neighbors.
Trustee McKinnon?
Well, I was just gonna say that we currently do have a time limit that. So if you look at subsection B, it allows for 72 hours for minor repairs to be done on a paved or gravel section. And so there is a exception in here for minor repairs, but I think what we're talking about is the repairs that will take a little longer, right? I know somebody who adores their vehicles so much so that they do most of their own work, and part of that is they're removing the rear axle in a day or two, and it's going to take a couple of days to actually fix it. And so I think there is this line again between something that's actively being worked on and something that is not. And I don't know. I feel like that's the line that we're missing here, but I don't know the language that needs to go in to create it.
I do have one comment for your consideration. Whatever we change, please do not remove the provision that says and not on public property. And I say that for one reason. So if this is happening in a street such as Third Street where there's curb and gutter, it can get into our stormwater system untreated and then be put into the North Fork. So that's one provision that whatever we consider, please do not remove on public property.
Can you tell me where that is? Is that
I'll
under B?
highlight it. So it's under B.
Thank you.
Protecting our watershed.
And I'm sorry, where did you?
Last statement.
Yeah, it's the
Okay.
last thing.
All right,
Yeah.
hang on, let me look at that. Town to permit such lot of
Oh, it's the
land.
last couple lines.
So this subsection does not apply to minor repair and maintenance. As long as vehicle is parked on a gravel or paved driveway or parking area and not on public property. Okay, would this be the place to say it could be in your front setback? And then have caveats associated with that? Or give them 72 hours in their front yard setback? Anyway, just a thought, but I thank you for pointing that out and I agree. No public property.
Yes, Trustee Schwartz.
Oh, I think Chief Lanninger had a
Oh,
question.
I just wanted to point out that Nick had highlighted, and the board as well as the public brings up real good points. This is exactly what we're dealing with. The section that he highlights under A, the bottom part of that paragraph, that's currently all we have to work with.
Oh.
So there's, sorry. Stefan highlighted that. That's currently all we have to work with right now. So what our intention was with this was to provide some clarity to the citizens so they understand what is it. Am I working on it? Does it run? Does it not? We were looking for a definition and to give the officers something that they could enforce. And then when we go to court, they have something to stand on. But when that's all we have to work on, it's not fair to the community. It's not fair to the citizens. It's not fair to the officer. That's very broad. So everybody, you're right. Like the things you're discussing are exactly what we've been discussing. We need more. It needs to be much clearer than what it currently is.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm gonna let Trustee Schwartz take it and then I'll talk to you again. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm fully in support of the definition of inoperable vehicle, meaning that it has to be licensed and insured. I'm fully in support of A. My one clarification, and this is a question for Nick, because maybe I'm misreading it. So is section C saying that if it's, I get that it's, I'm fully in support of it not having an operable vehicle in your front yard. The thing I'm not in support of is if we are saying that if you have an inoperable vehicle in your backyard, it has to be tarped or in a little structure or hidden. Is that what we're saying? Or is having an inoperable vehicle in your backyard in the open, is that okay?
The way it's written right now, and this is really a policy question. So the way I had written it was that it would need to be covered or fully screened from view from those neighboring properties and from the right of way. So, and this is pulled from other municipal ordinances where one of the concerns, the policy matter that those municipalities have decided that they want to guard against is those property values, right? Some municipalities might find that other, neighboring properties don't want to see the car from their properties. The other impetus, and Matt and I discussed this kind of at length, the chief and I, rather, I should say, and it's if the desire is to have these screened from view so that others can't see a junked vehicle or an inoperable vehicle there, then the police department should be able to have an enforceable standard to actually make sure that that's not happening. And it's very difficult for a police officer to enter somebody's property without a warrant, of course. So the best way to keep your police department out of trouble is to have a standard that involves looking from the road. So those are the two reasons it's written the way that it is. But, if the board doesn't want to go that far, I don't think the tarp issue is one that's very difficult for somebody to do, right? They can just throw a tarp over the car. But if the board doesn't want to go that far, then that's certainly something that could be removed.
So one of the things that was added was in not locating the front setback. And that's pretty important for us when we have meter pits and service residents. So that's why we say, hey, stay on your front setback. And then it would also be a sidewalk with a lightless. Yeah.
So does the board feel that this has gone too far as the backyard go, the covering of the car?
In my mind, a car covered with a tarp or a car not covered with a tarp is the same. As far as visuals go, I'm fine with all of it except for the covering.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Does the board feel kind of in concurrence with that? So take the covering out of this?
Yeah, kind of like a cover. If it. I kind of think it provides, no pun intended, cover for the police if everybody has to do the same thing.
Okay, so have we beaten this one to death and shall we move on?
We'll vote on it next time.
Yeah, so if maybe take the covering out or modify it so it's not quite so strict and then bring it back.
For clarification, front yard and backyard?
Front yard is no, in my mind. Front yard is no.
Yeah, absolutely.
Backyard.
Maybe.
Designating, so I mean, just the front yard versus backyard designation, I'm just trying to be clear, I'm not trying to make things difficult.
Confused.
Are we going off of the numbering on the house designates the front yard versus?
Oh, yeah, when the front yard is actually faces the street where it doesn't. Ms. Watson, please, you had your chance. So
Hey, Nick, the one way to clarify this, it would be to add a definition for front yard and backyard Those definitions can also be found in zoning, so if we use the same definition from our zoning ordinance and reference it, that should satisfy what that definition should be.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you know, the intent is that along the street, it's not along the street, right? So that's a little, I mean, the question is how does that address for corner properties? And you know, if there's a side yard with a carport, you know, as it's written right now, it would need to be let's say, or without a carport, a driveway, gravel or asphalt, whatever it may be, it would need to be screened from view. And I understand we're talking about eliminating that, but now this presents a concern for those corner properties. You know, what is their front yard? And I know that the zoning code does attempt to address that, but is the board concerned with those corner properties now being able to view the vehicle in what might appear to some as the front yard, even though it would be treated as the side yard under the zoning code?
Can I ask a clarifying question? So where are we on this? Are we saying, I'm not sure what we're getting at here. What are we trying to prevent? Having multiple dead vehicles on your private property? You get to have one. Is that what this is saying?
Right.
You get to have one dead vehicle on your private property. It doesn't have to be licensed if it's on your private property. And we want to make sure that your neighbors and people going by are not offended by an ugly vehicle sitting in the open. Is that what we're trying to get at?
And provide that definition for inoperable vehicles on the public right.
And on the public right of way.
Well, just to give us a definition.
But should it be separated? Should the intent be separated? Because you don't want a dead vehicle on public property.
So
inoperable.
Right. We can distinguish. You know, the definition of an operable vehicle was needed, but that has nothing to do with the action provisions of this ordinance. The way you just described it, Trustee Smith, that is exactly the way to describe it. Yeah, and the prevention of those inoperable vehicles from being on public property, as Matt said, is certainly another one of the intentions of this ordinance.
But the way this is written, that is absolutely not okay. Whether you're covered or not, you can't have an unlicensed inoperable vehicle on the right of way for any period of time.
Yes, the way it is written now, we did not have that already.
Right, but is that your intent? You don't want an inoperable, you don't want an unlicensed vehicle on the public right of way. That's illegal. So that's covered here.
Oh, so
I'm really confused as to what we're trying to get at here. I'm really sorry.
I get it. Well, I want to distinguish. It's unlawful to have an unregistered vehicle on a public street in any case, right? The police department right now can go by and put a citation on that vehicle in accordance with state law, because it is unlawful to just have a vehicle that, you know, I've gotten tickets before in the city of Denver because my registration was expired, unbeknownst to me, because it was parked on a public street. So that's possible. However, and that was a county court fine that I received. But this is intended to give the town some remedies where the vehicle is actually inoperable. And if the definition of inoperable, only one piece of that has to do with some evidence. And Stefan, if you could scroll down for me again to that definition. Yeah. So, or up, I can't remember where it is.
Are you looking for a definition?
There it is, inoperable vehicle. Yeah. So, you know, this is trying to give multiple ways to determine an inoperable vehicle. Just one of those is the license plate and validation sticker. Then the others are what's listed there: junked, wrecked, wholly or partially dismantled. So we don't want any of those types of vehicles in the right of way. And there are a whole number of reasons that have been discussed tonight. One just being, it's a public street, there's curb and gutter. We don't want, cars being parked on there. We don't want them there because it's an eyesore. There are a whole slew of different reasons for that. So there's the public property issue, and then there's a private property issue. The private property issue is slightly different, and the intent of this ordinance as applied to private property is different. Don't want those necessarily in front yards. I mean, these are all policy questions, right? So the board can weigh in on any of these, but the way it's written is to prevent them from being in front yards because it's an eyesore. To prevent them from being, and we're talking about changing this now, but being seen in the back or the side yards as best as possible from neighbors or from the right of way, because that's also an eyesore. So those are the main intentions of this ordinance. And keep work, you don't want work being done on cars all the time. I mean, if you agree with this ordinance the way it's written, you don't necessarily want work done in residential areas, right? There are places that's supposed to be done in lawfully zoned areas, lawfully zoned to allow that to occur. And to address the points of the trustees, that some people do enjoy working on their vehicles. They want to do that all the time. They can do that, but they're time limited in doing that, right? Because otherwise it's going to start becoming a nuisance to those residential properties around them. So that's really the broad intent here. It's trying to address a number of issues.
Thank you. And with all that in mind, I say they have to have a cover. Just to answer that, because if it's an eyesore, it should be covered. Anyway.
Okay.
Thank you. But anyway, I want to thank you because it was getting very misconstrued as to what exactly were we trying to do here. Thanks.
Okay, so are we ready to move on to animals? Okay, not yet.
So that this doesn't continue to come up, are we okay, at least with the majority of you all thinking that a tarp is okay covered?
I don't know if I may be a minority.
I mean, I hesitate to try and regulate what people can do on their private property because we don't like how it looks. And I feel uncomfortable requiring people to cover a vehicle that's on their private property.
I wholly support A, B, D, and E.
So C's the problem.
C with the covering.
Okay, so
I support everything except for the covering.
All right, so it sounds like two of you say fine, but no cover. John, do you have an opinion?
Sure. I'm just trying to picture real examples of this, and
Second Street.
yeah, I'd say cover. But I think we can live without that if it's going to sink the ship.
As long as it's licensed and insured, I don't have a problem with it being out. But if it is not licensed and insured, it needs to be covered or in a structure.
So seems like cover.
Cover can go.
Okay, all right, now let's move on to animals.
Nick, I'm gonna cross it out.
Okay, animals. Word discussion, anything?
Yeah, with the animals running at large, again, the goal of this one was that we actually currently have two ordinances. Animals running at large and nature required. One is a citation, the other is a summons. We just want to make that clear. We're trying to clean up our code a little bit, not make it so difficult. The other thing I'll point out with the way this is written, this doesn't apply. If you read A, it doesn't apply to private property. So if your dog is on private property under control, that's your property to do with as you see fit. Leash, verbal commands, something like that. It wouldn't even be a concern if your dog was in your front yard. It wouldn't even be something we would stop and discuss with you. really what we're after is, parks, sidewalks, our public areas. And we're trying to combine two into one, clean up our codes a little bit, and make this much simpler.
Yes.
I fully support this one. I think it's well written, and I'm a dog owner 100%.
Yes, trustee Salter.
I have a problem with domestic cat exception. I have several house cats that belong to my neighbors that are in my yard all the time. I also have chickens, and I've caught the cats in my chicken coop more than once. So far, they haven't killed one of my chickens. I think they're after eggs, but I still catch them in there. And should I ever have young chickens, I think I'll lose them. And I did lose a complete batch of chickens, and I suspect it was a cat. I did not catch it, but I lost 12 chickens that I'd raised from, I hatched them in my house, and they were just about ready to lay eggs. So the other thing is that house cats are a terrible thing on birds. They slaughter birds, and basically it's constant. We also have a very large feral cat problem in town, and it's centered basically on Dots Market. They eat the trash and the food bank. It used to be the food bank, because they have meat scraps, et cetera, in the dumpsters. And if you walk that alley anytime, night or day, you'll scare up 3, 4, 5 cats. We do need to have some kind of a way of controlling feral cats. And one of the controls is having them spayed and neutered. But vaccinations are important too. And how do we pay for it?
Exactly. And so what would be a solution to a cat problem? Yes.
Well, I was just going to suggest my assumption of the exemption for domestic house cats was to create an ordinance that was enforceable, right? Because if we have to start to enforce this to every animal at large, then it becomes unwieldy, right? And so I think my read of this is the exempt of domestic house cats kind of preempts a separate ordinance that talks about domestic house cats, right? And so I think possibly we would be trying to have one ordinance do too many things at once if it was all in there. But I agree. I mean, and we have a cat problem, both feral and domestic. And again, where's the line? And you can, and we have local organizations that are spaying and neutering cats literally every week as fast as they can. And so without an ordinance, that work is already getting done. So I think that's my read on what's happening here.
My suggestion is to turn this into dogs running at large, take out the cat, and let's address the cats in the future, because it's a huge problem.
Yes.
So
that we can't deal with.
Yeah, Chief Lyman.
Okay, sorry.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
When this was first presented was on Valentine's Day, the 14th, and the very next day, there was a Facebook post about somebody who lost their cat while walking it on a leash. So, it was still an animal that was a domestic house cat that I never, if I didn't see the pictures of them walking their cat, I never would have believed it. And so, having it in there might not be a bad thing, except domestic house cat.
Yeah, when we initially discussed this, part of the reason that it was dog running large, we included animals was because of our chickens and rabbits. So we didn't want it to be set up where if you had chickens or rabbits in your backyard, they were free to go wherever they wanted to do. And that was part of this. Cats just seemed like, as pointed out, a very enforcement is an issue.
It's a huge issue.
Okay. So that's why we use the animals, so we could kind of include those. There's an ordinance that is in the works coming on pipeline that would restrict the number of animals you can have, as was mentioned earlier. We didn't bring them all at once because, as you can see, this is a process. But these things are in the works, but that's why some of them are worded the way they are. But that's.
So has the police had a problem with rabbits and
we have
chicken?
Not as much of the chickens. We do have a rooster ordinance that Oh, right. We have talked to people about it. I'm not ready to take about it. The rabbits have been an issue with people in their gardens. And it's mostly neighbors. When neighbors call, we go, we talk to them. They've been amenable, they've worked it out. That's kind of that community policing. But yeah, it's,
Okay,
that's what's there for.
all right. All right, so
Never mind.
sounds like it's okay as it is. All right, then let's move on to fires.
I had sent 3 comments today regarding open fires to Stefan and Nick. So Nick, if you would be comfortable addressing my comments and whether they have merit?
Yes, I would be happy to do that. So first thing that Trustee Smith pointed out, which was a typo, was that there is no section 3 of the ordinance, and that will certainly be corrected in the next draft. And we'll put in the section 3, and the numbers following it will also be changed. So that's a minor issue. And then I have the rest of the comments here. So then the next one had to do with a citizen comment that was received about not being penalized for using her grill. And I think that's an important thing, and it does accept this right in section, let's see, in subsection B, number 2, it does state that a grill is something that is an exception. The fire can be contained in a grill, and that's not a violation of the ordinance. However, grill is undefined. So I think Trustee Smith commented that, and I think it's actually correct. It's absolutely correct that a definition of grill would make this clearer to the public so that we don't have that type of question again. And just looking around at definitions for grill, the typical definition is a device that's used for cooking outdoors, consisting of a metal framework or gridiron placed over charcoal, wood pellets, gas, or other fuel. And I think what would help in Paonia's case is to say a device specifically manufactured and used for cooking outdoors, just because I think a lot of times there are arguments that an item that somebody has created that isn't necessarily typically intended for the use that it for something that it's used for does happen, and we want this to be enforceable as best as possible. But I think the definition without that specifically manufactured would also work pretty well too. The or other fuel part of that definition is also a bit concerning to me, just because, you know, somebody could say that they're burning something that's otherwise not permissible to burn, as prohibited elsewhere in the ordinance. But I think that also I'm not too concerned about. So that's just a definition that I crafted based on what I found on the internet, really, in various dictionaries, various trusted dictionaries, I should say.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, Merriam-Webster, Black Dictionary, things like that. So that was the second comment that was well taken, and I would recommend that the board align with. And then the last comment from Trustee Smith, part of the red lines that you see in this version of the ordinance in your packet today, much of them are to align the ordinance with state law. And it was brought to my attention that the state has some very good guidance on what is permissible to burn with or without a permit and what's prohibited. And we want to make the town's ordinance as consistent as possible with state law. One, there could be preemption issues, and 2, it's very important to have some consistency when it comes to members of the public. I think the the board might agree, that it's easier for citizens to follow one set of regulations than it is for them to try and reconcile two. So in any case, Trustee Smith's direct comment was that the definition of household trash, and that's up a little bit in this draft, doesn't align exactly with the state definition, and in fact may conflict and does conflict. I've confirmed that. So the state definition is that private household trash is paper, cardboard, and untreated wood products. It's not food waste, plastics, coated or treated wood products, rubber, tree limbs, shrubs, garden trimmings, and other vegetation. So my recommendation is to integrate Trustee Smith's comment, and that is to use the state definition rather than what's currently included in this ordinance. And I would encourage the board to also ask Matt about that, since I haven't had a chance to discuss with him. But those were the three comments. Trustee Smith, was there anything else that I missed?
No, you got them all. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Chief Lymanger, do you have a comment about that?
Yeah, so I mean, more of a general comment. This was just something that we didn't have anything at all. So once we decided to go down this, it was a bit of very involved. There was a lot to do with it, but I think the intention was not to stop people from enjoying their backyards. We live in rural Colorado. That was the goal. Was to allow people to do what they want on their private property, enjoy their backyards or front yards or grills. But at the same time, there were these restrictions and there were these requirements, so we had to try and blend those in. But to try and incorporate something so that your neighbor's not just burning at all hours of night, all sorts of things, and kind of ruining your enjoyment of life as well.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Yes.
On the outdoor fireplace, I suggest that we replace the wording commercially manufactured with specifically designed. And that takes care of it if you built it out of bricks in your backyard. And also, I'd like to add wood-fired pizza ovens in this. It's becoming a more common thing.
Yeah.
And we do have wood-fired pizza being made in the park for picking in the park. So I think that we need to add that as well.
Okay, thank you.
So we included oven is under chimney. Kind of definition.
All right.
With oven, so yeah, because the wood, the pizza ovens are very, very popular right now.
Yeah.
But the note about people building their own, also extremely popular right now. So yeah, I would absolutely, especially with the number, do it yourself as we have here.
Yeah, I have a question about the definition of grill. Does it become too laborious to enforce if we define a grill by its use? Meaning if it's a fireplace or one of the other defined fire implements, I guess, that is being actively used to cook food. Because and the reason I mention it is because to kind of get past this manufactured or commercially manufactured, because we're essentially creating a roadblock for folks who want to grill in their backyard, right? And so I wonder if that defining a grill by its use and not necessarily by its manufacture makes your or enforcement more difficult.
So I can weigh in on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So take a look at, I encourage all of you to take a look at, there are really four now. No, three, sorry. So chiminea, fire pit, and outdoor fireplace. They're all different definitions, and only the only one with commercially manufactured is the outdoor fireplace. And after you read those definitions, you go down to these, so B1 and 2 that right at the top of the page here. So 2 is the most important for these private properties. So it excludes a open fires are not prohibited when they are in a fire pit, grill, a chimney, or an outdoor fireplace. So really there's all of those exceptions right there. So it doesn't necessarily, the only thing that's contemplated as being commercially manufactured is that outdoor fireplace. So for the grill example, if somebody wants to cook over any of those other items, they're not prohibited from doing so. Yeah. But the grill is the only one where, the use is actually used in the definition, just because, I don't know of I can't think of another way to define grill, but I would certainly be open to doing it if anybody had a better idea.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that our goal, common sense and government often don't. But our goal here is to try to use a little bit of common sense from there. If you have a 15 by 15 tire fire in your backyard. But you could got your kids,
Throw a weenie on it.
cooking hot dogs over a fire, all you done grab a shot of rock or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we try to incorporate some of that, but.
Other comments from the board? Okay, so are we okay with some minor changes to that one? All right, so I guess this can come back one more time. All right. And let's, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make one comment about just in general. I think what the board's identifying this evening is some complexity in the language, and there is, and as a drafter, we try to strike the balance between enforceability and public comprehension, and it's often a different exercise. But I encourage, I hesitate to say this, but what I want people to understand is that the ordinance will have to be enforced by its language. So that's how people get convicted in municipal court, if it's appropriate, if they've actually violated the letter of the law. So that's one side of things. But what people should understand is the key here is that Matt doesn't want things burning in the middle of somebody's property without it being contained within something. And he and I have discussed what that really might look like, in the definition of fire pit might speak to this a little the best. But a hole with some rocks around it, is sufficient for purposes of containing the fire. And so if somebody, wants to burn an item that they can do so without a permit, or with a permit, if they've received that from the state, then, they just need to make that hole and put some rocks around it and ensure that smoke isn't unreasonably interfering with their neighbor's property. So that's really what I'm trying to get at here.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add to that? I just want to say I'm really glad to see these, because we've had some situations in our neighborhood where there has been people burning things they should not be burning, and it is horrific. In the summer, you have to shut your windows. So not only is there a fire hazard, but it's the particulates, which I think is especially addressed by the state's FAQs on what you can burn, is the particulate matter, since the whole state is considered non-attainment for particulate matter. So thank you for doing this. It's really important and much needed.
Okay, so let's move on then to agenda item number three, consideration of approval of resolution 03-2024, adopting a policy concerning town officer, employee, and board member consultation.
I can take this one if you'd like.
Do you want me to give a background on it, Nick?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
So this was proposed by Trustee Knudsen. He's not, or Mayor Pro Tem Knudsen, sorry. He's not here tonight. Obviously, he's been excused. And I believe this is something that Nick wrote, and that's why he signed it as approved as to form.
That's exactly right. So I appreciate that, Stefan. And this takes into consideration the board's feedback at the last meeting, and I understand that Trustee Smith was not in attendance there, so I'll just briefly explain what this would do. basically the intent, as trustee Knudsen explained it, was that it can be a drain on resources if trustees are reaching out to the attorney with legal questions that the rest of the board might not have, right? Or requesting opinions that the rest of the board might not desire to have. So it's in a lot of cases, I think it's appropriate to have policies like this because it might be the case that a trustee asking for the services of the attorney is in the minority or even completely out alone. And so this gives some clear direction on what process should be used. And I think using maybe not be the right word, but passing all requests through the town administrator, because the town administrator has the beat on what's going on, in most cases knows more than anyone else in the town about what's going on as far as the happenings of the town. And sorry, Stefan, if I'm speaking out of turn about what the town administrator, I should put it better this way, that he's in the best position to use his discretion on whether it's a good use of the town's resources for the town attorney, who's unfortunately expensive to provide advice on a certain matter. So the town administrator would receive that the request, and in his informed discretion and concerning the necessity of those services relative to the matter, will pass the request along to the town attorney, or if the town administrator anticipates that it will require significant legal services and benefit from the board's input, then he'll place it on the agenda. And then I wanted to make very clear, in accordance with the board's direction, that this policy, section 1 of the policy, doesn't apply to the mayor, the town administrator, police chief, or the town clerk, or such officers' designees in their absence, subject to the town's organizational structure and personnel policies. So that in those cases, these are officers of the town that I certainly recommend that be able to continue reaching out to me. I work with most of these folks weekly, if not daily, and they're very often pressing matters that can't wait for a formal board weigh-in at a meeting and are properly administrative. So I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, public opinion, yes.
I just had a question about the term town board members. Are we talking about town trustees? Or are we talking about tree board, board of adjustment? The planning commission is a commission, I guess it's not a board. Does that have to be clarified? Or do those officials also have access to the attorney through the town administrator? Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing that. Yes.
I have something I'd like to propose to be added to section 1, and that is the town administrator or designee. Because when we were hiring the town administrator, we didn't have a town administrator to go to. Well, even in between, we didn't even have, we had some moments when we didn't have either. So I'd like there to be the ability that if we don't have a town administrator, that we somehow have a caveat of who you would go to instead as a board member. I don't know how to word that, but we had that situation, and I went directly to Nick with a question at that time, which I think was proper. I don't know, but anyway. Yeah, trustee Stelter.
I think that's taken care of in section 2, and it says with such officers' absence, such officers' designees. So I don't know if we have to put a way of designating somebody to be the town administrator's designee, or he has one just permanently.
Well, I feel like section 1 is a whole different subject matter. It is saying if a trustee, and I think Suzanne brings up a good point to maybe clarify that. If the trustee wants to talk to the to the, put something in the attorney, they have to go through the town administrator.
Right.
The part below is who doesn't have to get permission to go to the lawyer. And I feel like it's two different things. Because
Maybe just putting the two words or designate. in there.
or designee, which means that the town trustees have to create a designee.
Right, and that should be the
Which,
mayor.
no, exactly, which hasn't always been done.
Right,
So we need,
exactly.
that would force us to, or future trustees to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Nick is.
Yes, Nick.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to suggest, I have an issue with the proposed method of the trustees sort of designating someone in the town administrator's absence, or I mean, if the position is vacant. But what about just in a vacancy in the office of town administrator, if it's the mayor? What do we think about that? I think that's kind of streamlined.
Yeah, I think that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
And that would, if I've had that kind of information previously, it would help. Yeah, no, because with that, and I'm not saying
You're
we
stuck now.
don't, yeah, that's why I don't want to do this again, but it could happen. And this is for perpetuity,
That's right.
correct?
Until
Okay.
they be perpetuity. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
This is kind of related, but I'm wondering like if when Nick sends us emails and he uses legal language that maybe we're not all familiar with, he could just briefly write what that is instead of assuming that we all know what it means. This is not really for the resolution, but yeah, just a little bit of clarification, especially as we get perhaps new council members, et cetera. Not connected to the resolution, but just a suggestion.
Can I respond to that? I absolutely agree with that. And no, I think that that's important. And, a skill as an attorney is being able to put things in ways that people can understand them. And I did reference earlier that in the context of an ordinance, sometimes we have to make sure that the language is enforceable, and the prosecution will be able to convict somebody on an offense or violation of the ordinances. But that doesn't mean that there can't be an accompanying document that explains it in more common terminology and phrasing. And if I had time, I certainly have done all of those things, and I will make an effort to do that moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Nick. And I would suggest that instead of town board members, it be town trustees or town board of trustees. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, I can't make motions, so.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 3/20/03/2024 with the added corrections or additions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, well, I think we are done for the evening. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we shall see you hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We are adjourned.
Mayor, trustee reports?
No.
We're adjourned. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.